Well, joining me now is Governor Philip Murphy, also former American ambassador to Germany and a Democrat. I've got to ask you, first of all, how do you respond to the thumping across the board which the Democrats took in the election?
Tough week, for sure. Listen, I think it's a sobering moment. It's a moment where we have to really be honest with ourselves, look in the mirror, boil this down to figure out how we got here. Was it the message? Was it the messenger? Was it the policies? It's probably a little bit of all of the above, but it's a tough reckoning right now, to be honest with you.
There seems to be a certain amount of blame going on. Nancy Pelosi singling out Joe Biden for not going earlier. Others saying that Harris was a weak candidate. Are you pointing the finger in any direction?
No, I don't think so. I think she actually did a very good job given the hand she was dealt. I mean, it was July 21 to November 5. That's as short a runway as we've ever had in the modern era of politics. In a perfect world, would a longer runway have helped? I think probably yes. She was, even though a sitting vice president, you're still in the shadow of the president, and she was introducing herself with a very limited 100 and something days. I think we're all to blame, frankly. There's plenty of blame to go around right now in our party.
Do you think anyone could have won as a Democratic candidate?
I think with a longer runway, we could have won, including Kamala Harris. So it's not necessarily her versus someone else. It's, I think, a different set of circumstances would have led to a better outcome.
Now, what about the Democratic Party? You've been involved with it for a long time. Has its base basically evaporated? Its blue-collar, working-class base, if you like, gone to MAGA?
Yeah, I think we've taken a lot for granted, but I don't think it's irretrievable. In fact, I'm confident it's not irretrievable. But we've working men and women. Certainly, Trump ate into the African American and Latino vote significantly. Frankly, a lot of people stayed home and sat in their hands. So putting aside what the percentages would suggest, there was a lack of enthusiasm, and we've got to get that back. And this is good. As I say, it's a reckoning for sure for us.
You know Trump. You knew him as a banker for Goldman Sachs and a deal maker. You're both deal makers. What are the chances he can deliver on what he's promised to make everyone better off?
Yeah, it's a good question. I really got to know him actually in the throes and the deepest, darkest moments of the pandemic. And to his credit, in those early days, he and his team were really important for us and saved a lot of lives, I have to say. I don't know is the answer. It's a good question. You've got, at one end, bluster. I have not done this, but a lot of folks say things to get elected that they don't necessarily mean in terms of how they will govern. He's probably a mixed bag. I think you'll know a lot by Christmas in the sense that you'll see members of his team or proposed members. He's got an incredible asset right now. He not only won the White House, he won control of the Senate. And the Senate in our country is the place where personnel run through. So judges, cabinet members, ambassadors, you name it. So I think you're going to get a very good sense in the next number of weeks based on the names you see being floated or proposed as to whether or not this was just politics or whether this is how he's going to actually govern.
Given what we knew already, do you think he was fit to be president?
Listen, I'm not. While I have a relationship with him, he's not my guy. Let me say that unequivocally.
It's a bit more serious than that, though, isn't it? It's a first convicted felon.
Yeah, I mean, even putting that aside, this is his worldview is very different than the traditional American worldview, and that concerns me. It concerns me not just in domestic affairs, but in foreign policy or relations with our allies like the UK, and we've got no better ally than the UK. I worry a lot about all of the above.
The UK, as you know, is no longer a member of the European Union.
I read that.
You've heard that, yeah. And obviously there's some questions about our relationship with the United States, whether there is a special relationship and all that. Do you see any chance that the UK could sort of carve out a special deal with the Trump administration?
I do. I may be in the minority on this, but I do. And I'm certainly not speaking for President Trump, but I think there's got to be some appeal here for, hey, By the way, I think Brexit was a disaster. Let me just say that as a personal matter. But if I'm in Donald Trump's worldview, you know what? Those guys, they revolted against that big bureaucratic blob known as the EU. They did something very courageous. They opted out of it. He might be attracted to that. I don't know Keir Starmer. He's not in the same political lane that Donald Trump is in, but I think, by the way, nor am I, and I've got a relationship with President Trump. I think there's a lane there for the UK. I really believe that.
But in terms of competition and America first, one of the areas where the UK does very well is an area you know very well, banking, financial services. Presumably he'll want to take some of that back.
Yeah, although I have to say, I'm not sure that's going to be a priority for him, honestly. He's got so many other things. He did not campaign or win based on financial services, Wall Street angles. So I'm not terribly worried about that. I think the bigger concern is his tariff policy. Is it going to be broader than just China? Is it going to be against allies like the UK? How is he going to treat NATO? Those, to me, are much bigger concerns.
What about Germany? You've been ambassador there. The government has just collapsed.
Yeah.
Do you think Germany's in worse trouble than the UK if you look at the prospects ahead?
Yeah, the economy is flatlined at best. It's an economy with a big reliance on automobiles, on engineering, on manufacturing, all of which have turned against it. As you rightfully point out, their government collapsed a few days ago. There'll be early elections, which is a first time since the Second World War that's happened. I'll be stunned if the opposition is not elected. By virtue of living there and being an ambassador, we know all the parties. I'm confident Germany will land on its feet, but it's going to have a tough go here.
I mean, given that and given the political situation in France as well, do you think there's any prospect of the UK rebuilding bridges towards Europe?
Toward Europe? I hope so. I think that'd be good for everybody. It'd be good for the UK and good for Europe. As I say, I'm not a Brexit guy. I think that was a big mistake. So any amount of bridges that can be rebuilt, I think is good for everybody.
Now, what about New Jersey?
Jersey, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're here on a trade mission. I mean, how much can you, at state level, do with the UK as a nation?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that we're now in day 3 of a very successful economic mission here. We start in a very good place. The UK, two-way trade, two-way investment, two-way job creation is really strong. It's among our closest and biggest counterparts. I think there's a lot of room to grow. I think subnational actors like governors are going to be more important in a Trump era. And that plus the UK has really done a good job. We're going to be in London as we are now in Cambridge. The whole
You've got a big tech AI focus.
Big tech, AI, health tech. That's who we are as a state. That's what the UK is. That's what Cambridge and London are right now. I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow.
And that would be investment coming here or?
Both ways.
Both ways.
Both ways. In fact, I suggested to a group of health tech folks yesterday or the day before that they should get Sadiq Khan to make a similar mission to New Jersey as I am making here from New Jersey. It's potential fruit on both sides.
And how much is that threatened by potential tariffs, as Trump's talking about?
Yeah, I'm not a tariff guy, so I think that's less likely, honestly, with one exception. The only thing that unites Democrats and Republicans in America these days is the People's Republic of China. So I think if you're in China, you got to fasten your seatbelts. I'm less worried about the UK or Europe in that respect.
Are you worried about the influence which Elon Musk may well have in the new government?
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't know the guy, but I don't like one person exercising his wealth to the extent that he's done it. I'm not a fan of that. There was a very famous Supreme Court ruling about 15 years ago called Citizens United, which eliminated caps on political spending and allowed so-called dark money groups to exist. I think that's all bad, and he's taken advantage of that.
And you say that as someone, as a successful person yourself, who put quite a lot into your own campaign.
Yeah, I did, and also I was the finance chair of the Democratic National Committee. But for day one, I've been opposed to eliminating caps and allowing dark money to play as big a role as it did. And Musk is unfortunately the latest example of that.
It's not going to go away, though, is it, Citizens United?
It won't go away. Not with this Supreme Court, for sure. In fact, I don't know how it could get worse, but if anything, it gets worse before it gets better.
Now, another thing that unusually perhaps for an American, even an Irish American, is you're a lifelong soccer guy.
Big time. We own a women's. I'll use the proper word. We own a women's football team back in New York, New Jersey. I'm going, as you and I speak, I'm going to a match today. We are going to host the World Cup final on July 19th, 2026. Wouldn't it be fun if we were England against the U.S.? Yes, in New Jersey.
Where's it going to be?
MetLife Stadium, which is where the New York Football Giants and New York Jets play. 82,500 fans. Again, I'd love to see England, U.S. Why not?
Was that you who did that as a soccer fan?
It was partly me. We bid on it jointly with New York City. So Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, deserves a lot of credit. But I think we had some amount of credibility because we, as in our family, we understand the sport and love the sport. My wife is the chair of the women's team that we own. It's something we play as a family. Our kids play. We love the sport.
Right?
I played. I'm lousy. Thank God there's no videotape of my playing.
Your soccer team, football team's got a brilliant name, Gotham.
Gotham. Yeah, we rebranded it. It used to have a very kind of middling name, and it's now FC Gotham, which we love.
What was it before?
Sky Blue, which is a nice name, but it didn't do much. But FC Gotham is sort of...
Have you got a whole Batman thing?
Yeah, we have to be careful. The Marvel folks don't want us to do too much of that, so we got to be careful.
Now, I mean, speaking of Batman in a sense, a lot of people, a lot of Democrats, a lot of progressives in this country are in a very bleak mood right now. They see the world going in a direction perhaps away from the post-Second World War settlement. What do you say to them?
They're not wrong, unfortunately. So that's I think we have to be sober and honest about what this election means in the near term. I'm an optimist, having said that. Politics comes and goes. We've got 2 governor's races next year. Ironically, New Jersey, one of them.
You're stepping down.
I have no choice. I'm term limited, so I will step down in January of 26. Virginia and New Jersey are up to bat. I think you're going to see a reaction to this presidential election in a significant fashion. You've then got midterm elections in 2026. So while this is dire, there's no doubt about it, and this is, you rightfully put it, this election is contrary to the mood, to the trend, to the institutions that have stood for post-World War II. I believe this will come back around. We're going to have to work at it. We're going to have to be honest with ourselves. As I say, this is a sober moment for sure. But if we distill it down to why we got here and what we can attach ourselves to come back, I think we will.
Governor Murphy, thank you very much.